Hey everybody. So I'm so excited to just kind of chat for just a couple minutes about this. I know a lot of you have heard of the 80/20 rule, right? Because it applies in so many different areas of our life, right? So we're going to talk about a couple ways that it applies here in your business, right? All right. So the 80/20 rule, just to give like a brief explanation, I'm going to use Champion here as an example because Pam has shared this in the past about Champion, our statistics and things like that. But the 80/20 rule, the gist of it is 80% of outcomes come from 20% of causes. Okay. So what that breaks down to is, for example, here at Champion, 80% of our sales come from the top 20% of the sellers, right? However, does that make does that make the other 80% less important? Absolutely not, because we would miss 100% of our goals without the other 80%. Okay. So if that gives you an idea. So a lot of times I've heard people talk about, oh, it's the 80/20 at the school, right? The people that volunteer to help out at the school, it's 20% of the parents that do 80% of the work. So I'm sure you've experienced it in your workplaces, you've experienced it all over the place. And so, but what I want to talk to you about in business is about the 80/20 rule when it comes to working your business, right? So 20% of your work tasks produce 80% of your results. So that 20%, what are those tasks, right? We refer to them as IPAs. We refer to them as income producing activities. That's the 20% that gives you 80% of your results. Are the other jobs in our business that are not income producing, are they important? Yes, because things would fall apart without those other 80%, right? So income producing activities, just to give you a couple examples, anything that results in income is an income producing activity. And so you can kind of argue like, well, doing mailers is an income producing activity. Yes and no, right? So for example, income producing activities are reaching out to customers with the intent of selling, dating, recruiting, right? So however it is you reach out to them, whether it's messages, whether it's phone calls, however it is that you reach out to them, those are income producing activities. Things that are less income producing activities are things such as so if you do virtual parties, it's the time that you have to spend creating your content, the time you have to spend setting up the party. Is it vital to making that money eventually? Yes, 100%. But it's not considered an income producing activity, right? And so, and also mailers, right? Mailing packets out to hosts, mailing gifts out to parties, packing your bags to get ready to go to a home party, right? You have to do those things, but it's not considered an income producing activity. And so I want you to think about that the next time that you're kind of like mapping out your work week or anything like that. How much time are you spending on those IPAs? Right? It's important. They're small little tasks and you only have to do them for small windows of time, but they make a huge impact on your business. So if you do all the busy work and not do this 20%, you're going to be missing out on those results, right? So there's some interesting little, like, so I was looking, I'm like, what are other examples of the 80/20 rule? And it just kind of like it goes on and on about all the different times in our lives that 20% of your social circle produces 80% of the value. So how many of you agree with that? I definitely agree with that, right? I have a lot of acquaintances. I have a lot of people that I know, a lot of people that know me, right? But it's that 20% that I get that value from is where I like to spend my time. Those are my closest people that I are in my closest circle. And those are the people that make me feel good about myself, right? I don't want to spend time with people if I'm walking away feeling like crap. When my kids were little, there was this mom and the kids all got along fine. And so they would play and all this. And I was so desperate for a mom friend at that time that I just kind of was like, well, I'll just, keep getting together with her and all of this. But you know what? I quickly noticed, like, when I would leave their house, I would feel awful about myself. She was one of those people that constantly would like elevate herself above you, right? To make her feel better, right? But it made me feel bad. And we knew mutual people. And so she tried to manipulate situations and make me feel like the other people that we knew mutually weren't actually my friends. And it was funny because after I kind of was like, I recognized it and I was like, okay, I'm putting a stop to this. As desperate as I am for a mom friend, I would rather talk to a wall than feel bad about myself when I'm leaving somebody, right? And so we hadn't gotten together with them for a while. And my daughter's like, I'm like, whatever happened? Why don't we get together with them anymore? And I was like, well, sweetheart. And I was honest with her. And I said, when I would spend time with, Mrs. So-and-so, I said, I wouldn't feel good about myself. I said, and it's really important in your friendships that you feel good about yourself. And I said, so, cause I felt like it was a good lesson for her to learn. And she was like, oh, okay, I understand that, and it's just, but that's the 80-20, right? Make sure that you're spending that important 20% on things that are going to fuel you the other 80%. So something else I want you to think about is when it comes to mindset, right? A lot of times people think that the success in our business comes from all of the effort that we put into it, right? Reaching out to people and doing all the things that we do, income producing activities. They think that a lot of the success comes from those activities, right? But I will be honest with you, one of the most important 20% is your mindset, is spending that time, taking the time to make sure that your mind is right. Because if your mind isn't right and you're trying to do these activities, it's not going to happen. It's just it's going to take longer, right? Your wheels are going to be spinning. You might get some grip, right? But they're going to be spinning instead of gripping. And so it's so unbelievably important to spend that 20% time on your mindset to make sure you get 80% of the results from that work that you do on your mind. And when I say mindset, what are things that come to mind for you, right? Mindset is self-care, right? So that has something to do with mindset. If you're burning at both ends, that's not going to help your mindset, right? But also just making sure that you're feeding things, you're putting things in front of you that make you feel good, that make you think, that make you that help you have a more positive outlook on life, and pay attention to the things that you're taking in. TV shows, right? Those subliminal things, music playing in the background, right? It's so important to pay that type of stuff. Just really, it really gets in there. And one of the things that I recognized years and years ago, I love comedy sitcoms, right? I just love them. They're just like I can turn off my brain and just like sit there and watch them, right? But there's some that their whole like thing, their shtick, right, is making fun of other people. And that's what they do, right? And I quickly realized when I started in my Tupperware business, that did not serve me, because in my moments of weakness, when I would be getting ready to train people like you, when I would be getting ready to do a party and I'd be feeling insecure, those jokes were in my head, but about me. Like I was like, what are these people going to say about me when I leave the room? Right? Am I going to become the joke of the little inside joke that they have every time they get together, their friends? Oh yeah, like the Tupperware lady, right? And so I quickly realized that, and I was like, I can't watch these shows anymore. As much as they make me laugh, I can't watch them anymore because it was getting in my head. So be aware of things like that that kind of get into your head and mess with your confidence, because they're sneaky, right? They're really sneaky and they just kind of get in there. And so, but I challenge you to look at your time, and are you spending a good amount of time on your mindset? Feeding your confidence, feeding your brain, feeding your emotions in a positive way to have that outcome. So yeah, so I hope that helps. And I hope it at least gives you food for thought. And that 20% on your mindset, it could be journaling, right? It could be meditating. It could be reading books. I mean, you guys, I'm sure when I have my front camera on, I have this whole bookshelf full of, that's only half of my business books. And then I've gotten rid of at least double that because I just like, I can't have this many books. because I just love to read. And give yourself grace, because a lot of times I used to beat myself up about not finishing books, but you know what? It's okay if you don't finish a book. If you got what you needed out of it, then that's good. You can go back and revisit it later. But a lot of times with a lot of these books, I'll look at the chapters and I'm like, that's something I need. That's something I need. That's something I need. And I kind of skip around. So don't be afraid to do that. All right. And I listen to audiobooks, because then I can just listen to it all the time. And I'd rather listen to that than something else that isn't going to serve me and isn't going to build me up. So definitely think about that.